Hey guys, welcome to another Morris Method coaching video. Now within this quick video, this is going to be part 2 of 5 videos where we go through how you can implement and get more performance through strength training for trail running. So like I said, this is part 2 to a 5 video series where we're going to be discussing about how you can implement your strength training, which is part number 1. So click here if you've missed that. And now part 2 is where we're going to start to go a little bit deeper into some specific focuses, particularly talking about a specific muscle that I'm going to absolutely recommend you get activated so that you can not only get more out of your running, but you stay injury free. As a running coach, one of the biggest flaws that I see is having under-firing glutes. Your butt seems to not want to work, particularly in long distance running. Maybe this is you, or maybe this is just you getting into strength training and you're looking for some exercises to get yourself into it. And that's what we're going to start with here. But I want to put today's focus, part 2, all around your glutes, all around your buttocks, all around that squeezing action, so that the most powerful muscle that you have, your glutes, can actually activate while you're out there trail running. Let's use the same example that we used last time. Let's suggest that you're going to be training for the Ultra Trail Australia 2021. Now it is November here, 2020, and you've got a bit of period of time in front of you where you can start to focus and improve your strength in your legs so that you can go the long distance. Now again, whether you're doing the 22, the 50 kilometer, or the Big Bertha 100 kilometers, having strong legs is going to be absolutely important. Alongside your aerobic conditioning, if you need help with aerobic conditioning, just click up here. You want to make sure that having strong legs that can withstand the downhills, the uphills, and to be honest, even just the flats and the hard terrain, it's going to be a great way for you to enjoy it more and to not necessarily break the body down as much. So these 3 exercises, like I said, are going to be talking about the glutes, or are going to be focused around activating the glutes. I'm going to give you something to think about at the moment when we're talking about getting your glutes to fire, right? What your glutes should feel like when they are firing or when they are working, particularly within these exercises that I'm going to give you, is it should feel like a squeezing action. So I want you to imagine that you've just cleaned up the sink or just the kitchen bench. It was all wet, and now you've got this wet rag, and you're going to go over to the sink and you're going to squeeze all that water out of the wet rag. That's what I want you to feel, and that's the sensation that I'm looking for when you're completing these exercises, trying to focus on that glute activation. So using that focus where you think, okay, wet rag, I've cleaned up the kitchen bench, now I've got to walk over the sink and squeeze all the water out. That's what your glutes are going to feel like when you're firing it correctly. Like I said, this is going to be a little bit more advanced than just part 1. We're going to start to utilize a little bit of external weight, nothing too much, and it just depends on what sort of equipment that you have at home. If you feel like you need some sort of alternative, put down in the comments and let me know. I'll soon give you an alternative that you can actually allow these glute activation workouts to still work for you. So our exercise number 1 is going to be with a barbell, and we're going to be doing a rack pull. What I want you to picture when we do a rack pull is you're going to have the bar at about your knee height, or even just slightly above your knee. Once you've set the bar up there, the best place to start is just to start with the bar. Now you can either use the female bar at 15 kilos, or you can use the Olympic bar at the 20 kilos, depending on how comfortable that you feel. Once you've got the bar set up just above the knee, you're gonna bring your feet into a close stance position. So what I mean by close stance is when you look down at your feet should be nice and parallel, and they're about hip width, not shoulder width, not in a squat position. They are hip width, toes pointing straight, and all you're going to do is bend down, reach the bar. As you reach the bar, you're going to do this over-exaggerated motion where you pull your shoulder blades away from your ears, and we call this locking your lats on so that your back stays nice and engaged. Once you've got a bit of tension through the back, From there, all you're going to do is stand yourself up and squeeze your buttocks at the very top of the movement, and then fold and relax and place the weight back down onto the rack. In between your reps, there should be no activation whatsoever. The bar and the body should be completely relaxed at the bottom to then reset, shoulder blades back and down, lats pull back on again, to then squeeze the glutes to come back to the top. So again, let's go back to what it should feel like. Remember that wet rag, squeeze all the water out. As your hips extend forward, you should feel both sides of your buttocks squeeze inwards, and there should be a really tight rock feeling right in your butt. Now, depending on your experience, you can obviously start to overload these sorts of exercises, obviously by adding a bit of excessive weight and a rep range. So if we're looking for strength, I would just start out with somewhere between 3 to 7 reps and make sure you're getting that glute activation. One of the biggest flaws that I see when people trying to do strength training is that they hold true to just the reps. So they get told that they should be doing 7 reps, but if your form breaks down at the 5th rep, there's no point doing the 6th and the 7th if you've got the wrong form. So make sure when you do this exercise, you can actually feel every rep squeezing. Otherwise, it's honestly just a waste of time. We're gonna go into exercise number 2, and that is going to be a lunge again. Now again, in part 1, we did do a lunge already, a static and or a walking lunge. But within this focus, within this lunge that we're gonna do today, it is gonna be halfway between a little bit static and it is a little bit dynamic as well. What I mean by that is we're going to be doing a glute focus lunge with a push. What's going to happen is you're going to go into this static lunge position. You bring your feet into that hip width position. You're going to take one leg back, go down to the bottom, bring your knee nice and close to the ground without actually touching. And then as you come up, you're actually going to straighten that back leg, and you're gonna try and squeeze your buttocks as you almost push away off the ground. Typically, when we first start with people doing lunges, they seem to overload the front leg. For this particular exercise, I just want you to focus on the leg at the back, and that's the glute that's going to work. So let's say that your right leg is at the back. That's the side of the glute that I'm looking to activate when you explode and push off. If you feel like this exercise is just a little bit too advanced and you can't gather what I'm actually talking about here, come down to the ground on all fours, on your knees and your hands, and all you're gonna wanna do is a bit of a donkey kick back, and then bring your knee back to your chest and kick straight back out again. And what you will find is that will mimic that same sort of motion to allow you to get that glute to activate. So obviously running being a motion where the legs do separate and will work obviously repetitively, allowing some exercises where you are starting to split the legs up is going to be really important. Okay, so for our third and final exercise, it's going to be the goblet squat. Within part 1 video where we talked about doing the body weight squat, this is obviously a step up from there where we're going to be adding a bit of extra load on the front of the body. Again, with today's focus being the glute squeeze, within this exercise, you will get quite a fair bit of quadricep load as well. So what I want to make sure that you do when you do this exercise is you're still mainly focusing on just that glute activation, on just that wet rag, squeezing it out over the sink kind of feeling is what we're looking for. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your feet this time just slightly wider than your hip stance, just like what you did in the rack pull. From there, feet just slightly wider than your hips, not too wide with your feet. And then you're gonna turn your toes slightly out to the side. And when you come down into the motion, you wanna bring your buttocks straight down to the ankles. As you come down through towards the ankles with your glutes, your knees are gonna go out to the side, allowing room for your elbows to sit in between your knees. Once you're at the bottom, what I want you to try and focus on is almost feel relatively relaxed in the hips and the legs, and then reactivate as you stand back up. At the top of the motion just there, that's where I want you to, again, squeeze the glutes, give me both sides a nice tight clench in your buttocks. Then as you come back down, your glutes will start to elongate and relax back out again, knees go out to the side, and repeat the same motion as you squeeze back up again. Okay, so this is what we call the goblet squat. Now, depending where you're currently at, sometimes if you use too light of a weight, that can make it hard to find the full range, but then obviously if you use too heavy, it can obviously be too heavy and you can end up doing more damage than good. So finding a balance between the right weight can take a little bit of time, so just make sure that you ease yourself into that exercise. That gives you 3 exercises with one major focus of activating your glutes, because one of the major things that I see, one of the major flaws that I see in runners is underperforming glutes. Making sure when you're going up the stairs and you're climbing up those hills, you can use that nice, big, powerful muscle that sits in your buttocks, your glutes, to your advantage while you're out there for an extended period of time. Okay guys, hoping you enjoyed part 2 of 5 videos where we talk about strength training for trail running. If you are new to the channel, I'd like to welcome you to hit subscribe, hit me a like on this video, or throw down a comment on let me know what you're actually training for at the moment. And if you need any advice, guys, don't be afraid to let me know, and I'll be sure to see you all here next time. Thanks guys, bye.